Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today, Customer Education for a Stronger Brand Identity. My name is Justin Seeley. I am a Senior Learning Evangelist here at Adobe. I'm thrilled to be joined today by our guest, Marson from Lufthansa Systems. If you're not familiar with Lufthansa, they're the technology arm of the Lufthansa Group, providing advanced software solutions for the aviation industry, including flight planning, dispatch, and data systems that are used by airlines all over the world. And Marson leads, Marson leads the service area for their flagship product, Lido Flight. Did I say that right, Marson?
Yes, perfect.
And
Yes.
what makes his work especially interesting to me is how learning plays such a central role in their business, and that not just for onboarding their customers, but also for shaping how people experience the brand itself. So, Marson, I've been looking forward to this chat all week because what your team has done with customer education to me really blurs the lines between training and brand storytelling. And that's something that a lot of organizations are really still trying to figure out, and something that I'm personally passionate about. So I just want to say thanks for joining us today and for sharing some of your story. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for introducing the company. You did it very well job. Hello, everyone. Nice to be with you, and thank you for investing time to spend an hour with us. So,
Fantastic.
yeah.
All right, so let's kick off and give folks a little bit of context. So, can you tell us a little bit more about Lufthansa Systems and your role there, and what does your team focus on, and how does learning fit into that overall picture?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Lufthansa Systems is a small part of a big Lufthansa group. There are like over 200 companies or subsidiaries within the group. We are just one of them, but fully owned. And to give you a context of the size of our company, it's about 3,000 employees in comparison to the Lufthansa Group, which has like 1,000 employees. So yeah, we just like 3% of the whole group. So the main focus of training service within Lido Flight 4D, and this is already something different what you can experience when usually talking about learning and development, that we are not covering like typical learning and development for the whole organization. We are actually about the product, the brand, and not about like delivering training internally or just e-commerce or something. We are around the product, and we are in the whole stream of delivering the value. So if the training is not working, the customer will not use or utilize the benefits of the product. And that the product itself has like over 2,700 items which you can configure and which can impact your flight planning, and it's like super huge. It has constantly updated database with NOTAMs coming from all over the world. So if in one airport around the world a runway is closed and the aircraft cannot use it, the information reaches us and we update that information in the system. So all the time, all the data is updated. Like we have like a huge group of people taking care of that constantly. So that's also makes us different than other providers, because we also provide a lot of data, and actually other providers also buy the data from us. So it's a
Hmm.
bit surprising maybe. Like if you think about us as a training service, there is a whole group of different services. We have business consulting, we have support for customers or users, and we have of course training among others. And to understand what this training means, like we are designing, developing, and delivering the training to users at any stage. Uh, May they be implementing the product for the first time, may they be long-running customers with us, then they need to have so-called refreshers, or they want to advance with the skills, so they want to have more advanced or master class training. So we cover all that topics. And yeah, it makes a difference really if we provide it following the quality we want to achieve and the expectations of the customers, and to support them to achieve their goals. So when I started with the service, and that was 2020, and I immediately switched to thinking about ITIL 4 and the guiding principles, which are 7 of them. And the first one is focus on value. So identifying the value for the customer and not assuming it. Of course, I could assume whatever I would figure out from what I would be able to analyze. But to talk with the customers and identify what they actually need is, I would say, initial step of achieving the success. So to
So to
understand
understand,
uh, what they exactly need, and then to work on service offering and presenting that to them and discussing that with the customers and seeing if that's reflecting what they think and what they need. So this really, I think, is a key factor of getting to that successful story and making part of brand identification of our company. Like when we are in the relation, I don't mean that you need to call your customer, because we have a separate service for that called product delivery managers. But even if I'm not in the front of communication every day with the customer, I know their needs, and I'm like I'm in at the table. I'm sitting at the table, and I know what's going on. Yeah, and that's like Jack Phillips wrote many times. You need to secure your place at the table. If you are not sitting at the table, you are just you are not kind of maybe not a decision maker, but you don't even know what's going on. So that what I say is really crucial. So
yeah,
yeah, so
I would agree with
yeah.
you on that. I would agree with you on that. I think, having a seat at the table and really tying in, like you said, value to the it's not just training, because and I think that's something that's interesting to me about what you guys do. It's not just like training on how to use software. It's actually kind of a branded experience that, because of the fact that you focus so heavily on the value and things like that, that it helps you guys build trust and confidence within your brand through the training that you provide. And I just wonder, and it sounds like maybe you've already answered my question, but how intentional has that been for you and your team to make this not just another training service, but to be almost like a, I don't know, like a sidekick or an assistant, a helper that kind of works alongside the customer. At least that's what it feels like when you read, about it and all that. So is that kind of your mentality when you go to build these things? You want to be a partner with your customers versus just giving them information and hoping that they ingest it properly?
Yeah, so I would say there are a couple of aspects to that question. Maybe I start with the company. So our
Sure.
oldest, or let's say longest customer working with our product is with us like over 25 years. So it's a very long relations. And this, of course, moves us to that mentality of not only giving them product, but being in a relation, like supporting them in achieving their success, and this way we are also achieving our success. So in some areas I would say it's a cooperation, sometimes it's even more a collaboration. So now when we like move to the next stage and we now develop new modules, we have even customers like giving their opinions, having sessions with our researchers who test with them if this solution really works for you. So they are now even involved in the process of production, which was not the case like 25 years ago, because the UX and user experience was not so known, and I think it was just being in creation even. And the other aspect is my personal experience, because I used to work in a public sector and we were using uh, data management system for advanced collections. And even though the systems were very good, we usually lacked support and training. And this really, I was able to observe actually that without this support, without these services, without good training, and having the feeling that there is someone who will respond to your needs, this really created a quite negative response on the our side, even though the product was very good. And that taught me a lot about, like, it's not only the product, the services make the overall experience great, because the product so far is not doing everything by its own. So there is needed a human to human relation. And yeah, of course we can do AI bots and everything, but frankly, whenever we speak with customers, they always say we want to have a human on the other end of the line. So we don't want to have like everything 100% done automatically. So this also shaped the way we do the trainings. Of course, in the past it was classroom, but now with all the technology, we are shaping the trainings to be more um, blended learning, so a mixture of classroom and self-paced with the different proportions. But yeah, so coming back to the questions, because it's easy to go to swim away from the central point. So yeah, the thing is that if we try to, like, really deliver the value, which actually we create jointly with the customer, because the value is not that we go to the customer and give them the product and here you have the product and that's the value. No, it's actually the customer, it's their subjective experience, what is the value they get from the whole thing. So you can give someone a car, and they will use it to transporting. They will use for free movement. They will get independence because they don't need to follow public transport and so on, so on. So every different customer person can have a different value, but there are this main offering should support that, at least with some core items, because there might be case by case situations. And yeah, and we I feel obliged to continuously improve the service, that we reach, like, we expand the customer to new heights and become better and better, and not become static in the way we work. We need to constantly evolve. And actually I have a motto in my service, and it says change is the only constant, because everything needs to constantly, like, we change all the time. Change, if something is working, it stays for a moment, but at some point it has to change again. So it's a continuous progress.
But with the size of your customer base, I feel like the bar is pretty high because of, your brand reputation and everything. With the size of your customer base, how do you ensure that the learning experience meets the expectations at scale, especially if, you are putting such an emphasis on the human to human connection and things like that? Like, what are some of the things that your group thinks about when you're rolling out a new program or something like that to maintain the quality that you want for that product?
Well, definitely, of course, the customers are coming from all over the world. So whenever we think about training, we need to think about how to deliver it to different locations, and we do partially classrooms, and that there might be done in our training center, there might be done on site at customer locations. And we generally always think about, like, what is the benefit for the customer, if they, because we know actually from experience and all the knowledge in the industry that let's say the full classroom option is not the best option to learn, because you get so much information to digest that it's almost impossible to digest them within, like, sitting in a room for a number of days. Maybe I should mention that if we think about Lido Flight 4D, and let's say you are joining as a new customer and you are a key user, so one of the people who will be kind of making sure that the solution is implemented, you will probably need something around 20 to 30 days of training with us, which is divided into different modules, parts, and so on, to have, let's say, starting skills and knowledge to work with the product. So you will be at the level that you will be able to um, complete the task you have within the system. but you will not be proficient. And I think that's also important to tell to the customers that after few days of training you are not proficient, because proficiency takes experience, and that's usually number of months of so we are not trying to overpromise, and we try to have a clear goal of the customer. So each customer who is joining us has a project plan and so on, and we usually know very exactly the goals they have, so what they want to achieve when, and so we are able to adapt a bit the training we have. And every customer is a bit different story, because some customers can operate in Europe, and some of them have like short flights below 2 hours. Some have oceanic flights to other continents and so on. So, and the different environment, the landscape, like mountains, deserts, and everything. Yeah, it all impacts the way uh, the customers operate, and this impacts also the training. So the trainer usually is preparing to cover these unique items or the specific items of a customer, while the self-paced learning is to cover the whole general stuff of using the system. So the trainer needs to focus on the because to that would mean, if you would like to, like, say, make the self-paced training to cover all aspects of trainings and everything, we would probably need to make one training per customer, because
Mm.
each of them can have, like, maybe some of the training would cover 3-4 customers, but yeah, they all have. And then we also need to take into account the um, aviation authorities, so what they expect from them, the legislation in that countries, the technical culture in that countries, the work culture in that countries. So we like know that, for example, if we do training in Asia in the classroom, it's a different thing than doing it in South America or doing it in Europe. There is just different mood in the room, like and it's just different, like that's how it is, and we need to adapt to that as well. So we cannot expect that something that works in Southern America will work in Far East Asia, or something that works in Europe will work. And
To run an academy that was global for when I worked at, it was a large social media company that used to have a bird as its logo. You might know what social media company that is. It's not called that anymore. But I ran their customer education program, and we had these programs all over the world, and it was completely different. Like you said, when we were delivering something in South Korea versus Brazil or somewhere like that, and so we had I forget what we called them. Basically, they were local managers that would help us, facilitate these sessions or build the online training to really, make sure that the tone and the language and everything was as it should be. And that was always a difficult task, but I think what you're doing, by keeping things sort of modular, where there is a part of this that is off the shelf, but then there are certain aspects of it that are extremely customized to the customer. I feel like that's really an interesting way to approach it. And I just wonder, is this something that you tell folks before they buy from you? Because most companies look at customer education as something that happens post sale, right? Like you've acquired the customer, then you give them the education. But you've seemed to have positioned your education as more of a brand driver or a pre-sale, maybe. And so, is that something that you do intentionally, and is that what you think maybe makes your product stand out?
yes, well, the training that the customers are very aware that they need to invest time, and of course time is money. And in case of flight dispatchers, they work in shifts, so to take people from the shifts, you need to organize the rooster in a way that you can take the key persons for the training out of the rooster. So it creates a lot of dependencies on the customer side. So they usually ask about the training quite quick. I think already in the pre-sale phase, or this topic quite often. I'm not present there, but I know that this topic is often mentioned, and that there is a lot of discussion about it. And then there is, while the contract is signed, already this kind of project phase is contracted, so how long it will take, and the training is within it, and so on. So the training is not just following. We even had a kind of trainings for customers, because some customers do a kind of study with us before deciding to buy our solution. So we sometimes provide training even before they buy the product. They kind of do study checks. It takes sometimes 1 year, 2 years, and they kind of experience with the tool before making such a crucial decision, because it changes a lot of things. It's really sophisticated, advanced system, and like a decision to change from something else to something else. It's not so lightly hearted taken. It's a big business decision. And yeah, so the training is present there. And yeah, I think the customer are super aware of that they need to get ready quite quickly and to get back to the level of operation they were with the previous solution. Or some airlines are just starting their operation already with us, with our solution. So yeah, there are the different cases, but generally the training is present, and it's really important topic in the whole discussion. Like if the customer, like the dispatchers are not trained, uh, there will be a high level of frustration, and they will not even be able to operate. So like that's like always on the table. It's you theoretically you could buy it and have no training, but the obligation from our side is that you have to have the training. And it, somebody like super high performers are probably able to learn everything by themselves, but that's probably 3%, 5% of all users. So yeah, like even if you learn it by yourself, there might be ways to do something better and to better utilize the benefits of our product. So still, even if you know how to use it, it might not be the best way to use it in the optimizing way of benefiting from it. So yeah, the training is already, I think, in pre-sale. So the question, how many days of training and so on, it always there. Like I don't believe that any customer bought our solution and did not discuss the training in advance. And that's also a bit of a differentiator from other customers and providers, sorry, because other providers also give or provide training. But what we additionally do is we do the training, and we take care also on the learning transfer on the job. So I think that's super important, because we finish the training, and normally trainer could say goodbye, good luck, and go away. But we stay with the customer. So uh, training service, at least for 1 or 2 months, is supporting with Q&A sessions and job aids and chats and so on. But the other service, which is called business consultants, which is with the customer through the whole project of implementation, they continue that path and actually provide all necessary stuff which the customers need until the day they start to use it on, let's say, production. So until they start to operate flights with it. So there is a series of services involved in the whole value stream, let's say. So that's yeah.
No, I think that's very interesting, and I would imagine that that's probably, one of the ways that's easy to tie back impact, to what you do. There's probably customers, and maybe you have experienced this. Was there ever a moment where a customer, renewed, or influenced, that their adoption of your product was influenced directly from the training? Like, has anybody just outwardly said, we're sticking with you, or we're going with you because of this almost white glove like service that you provide?
Well, I don't have such a clear story that really the training made customers to stay with us. I think in the end, yeah, the whole product is the thing. The training is just supporting the whole story. But uh, we usually know very quickly from customers through our product delivery managers, and it spreads very quickly around the company, let's say we start with a new customer, and like already after 1 day or 2 days of training, we get information that the training is okay, customer is happy, and we are going in the good direction. And this is super important because that's usually the first contact of users with our product, because the customer, the management, some decision makers had already seen it. Maybe one or two key users have seen it who were asked to support the decision making process, but the overall group of users often sees that for the first time. So they hear rumors, they hear that there will be a new thing coming, and then finally they see it in the training. And yeah, the first impression stays. So it's super important to give to introduce it in the right way.
I totally agree.
And yeah.
Um,
So please continue, because I think
oh no,
that's
go ahead. Go
yeah.
ahead.
Well, I I know that. Well, I asked the customers once how they will know that training didn't work out, and one of them said, with a sense of humor, that when he enters the operations room, nobody is cursing, like nobody is swearing and shitting, and he said when it's silent, it's okay. Like if they are not screaming, and this means that it works. So
I suppose that's true. Oh man. So let's talk a little bit about shift gears a little bit and talk about how this all comes together behind the scenes. So I want to take a look at like what does your customer education ecosystem look like today? So, what tools maybe do you use? Who contributes across your teams? To make this learning experience, make sure it really represents your brand. Anything that you can tell us about how this all comes together behind the scenes.
okay, so a bit of advertisement of Adobe, because we use we use Adobe Creative Suite. We use Adobe Learning Manager, and yeah. So we are a group currently of, I think, 16 people. Yeah. So we have a group of around 3 equal groups. One group are trainers, and they are like very experienced users, previous pilots, dispatchers, like people who know the topic very well, with 20 and more years of experience in the sector, aviation sector, and also with the product. And then we have instructional designers, who are, I would say, to be a good instructional designer, you need to combine a bit of project manager, a bit of business analyst, and a bit, well, and a quite huge of learning expertise, and how to teach, and so on. So these are the three factors which usually make the instructional designer cover the whole topic. And then we have media designers, and these are people who, some of them graduated Academy of Arts and so on. So they are very skilled in transitioning ideas to digital medias, make it graphics, videos, animations, and so on. So these three groups combine together to provide the training. And the trainers not only deliver the training, but also often work as subject matter experts and reviewers. So they usually provide the key input for production. But of course, there are like 500 or 600 people working within Lido, and there are some very narrow specializations and so on. So we often need to use our networking within the company to reach the right people, and talk with them to review the stuff, and to make it the right quality. And so we usually start from let's say, analysis. Like I like to use the 6D of breakthrough learning with the business linkage in the beginning. So we always start with the question, the planning wheel, and like what will change after the training, and so on. Like is the customer paying for the training? So we are very interested in the goals of the customer, but we want to teach the user actually. But so there are like two. There might be a case that they are not heading in the same direction, and that the user wants to stay with the old solution when he had or she had everything under control, and the customer wants to change to new solution and have more automation, and the users can see more automation as a dangerous item which can drop them out of saddle and sack of work or something like that. So we need to balance that and to show the benefits of the whole thing, so that actually more automation allows the dispatchers to have more time for situational awareness, to focus on topics, to monitor things, and like to make decisions and not just copy things and paste them and like scrolling pages and so on, which is like dubious task, and this part can be automated actually. So we start with the design. So instructional designers uh, check the goals, like objectives of the trainings are super important. So they are based mainly on what customers need to achieve with the product. So what's the purpose of doing something, like why they want to have it and so on. So there is this whole analysis. So we do not analyze like gender or age, because it's not relevant for us. Like when I speak with somebody and they, oh, we need to analyze their age and everything, like, what for actually? Like we will not provide 3 different trainings to one company, because that's for like the millennials, that's for baby boomers or something. We will only have one training, so we need to cover all of them. They are professionals, and that's a professional training. But there are some aspects we definitely take into consideration. um, and when we have the objectives, we start to think about storyboarding, and already media designers are often present there within this discussion. The trainers often record videos to support the team, so more people can use it learner to later to produce the materials and so on. And then we spend a lot of time on production. But I would say storyboarding and getting like reviews and feedback from subject matter experts takes most of the time. Like this is really, yeah. And what's also important, the product is in constant development, so none of our trainings is ever like done. We are all the time updating, so we also need to figure out like how we can expand the training, put more stuff in it, and sometimes retire some parts of it, because some item is taken out and new item takes its place in Lido Flight 4D. So it's an adventure. I would say constant change is the only constant. Like if you have a mindset that you finish something and you never come back to it and you move to the next thing, it's not the job for you. Like you might need to come back to what you exactly did like 5 months ago and like throw it to a bin and do a new thing. But
Yeah.
I would say that's a part of creative process. Like it's not a waste; it's like a way of progress. You do not something next, and of course, a big item in the whole production process is to decide what is good enough. And the good
Hmm.
enough, we don't interpret good enough like missing quality, because the quality must be always the same, like 100%, no typos and everything. But good enough is, for example, if you have a learning objective and you can achieve it with slides or some kind of not animation, let's say some simulation or something, and on the other hand you have a super nice animation which you need to invest like 3 times more effort. The question is what for? Like if you achieve the same, of course it's nice to experience, nice to produce, and it looks nice at
Sure.
least for some time, because animation have a tendency to age quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something we also consider, like whenever we have such a task, like should we go into animations. Like we generally keep animations for abstract ideas, something we are not able to show in any other way. Like we cannot use parts of the system to show it. We just need to show users some sort of idea which is not visible. Then the animation seems to be the good idea to go.
Yeah, that's a very difficult lesson that I had to learn. I come from a graphic design background, so I care very deeply about visuals and all that kind of stuff. And so, when I was working in more fast-paced environments and places where it was just very crucial for us to get the training out, I had to redefine my definition of what good enough was. Right. And that's something that I think as a learning leader, you have to really instill in your team is what does good enough look like? When is it okay to stop and ship? and then what can you save for like when you come back, because if it is an iterative course that you're going to come back to several times, then there are things that you can tweak down the road. And I think that's an important lesson for everybody to take away, really, is like you have to figure out what good looks like, and then when is it time to ship. We have a couple of questions in the chat that I wanted to address very quickly. So one, um, from Sandia says, "Thank you for sharing your insights on building brand identity through customer education. Do you ever incorporate any immersive technologies like AR or VR into your programs?"
Uh, at the moment, not, because we mainly train the system which you use on computers. So if we would be doing
Mm.
aviation trainings and so on, we definitely would use virtual environments. Actually, there are virtual materials which you can use online to see cockpit of Boeing or Airbus and so on. So there are already solutions available. What we did do actually for one of the trainings, and this is actually 100% self-paced training used only for internals about aviation. So if you are joining from other, generally when you are joining our company and this aviation part of Lido, you are going through this, let's say, aviation introduction to understand the physics, the naming, the nomenclature, and everything in the sector. And we have there actually escape room exercise. So, but it's like a gamification more than augmented reality. In my previous work, I wanted to use augmented reality in one of the projects, but the main problem with the augmented reality is that you can have a brave vision, but the technology is still a limitation. The processors, the memory in your mobile phone, like introduces a lot of limitations, which for me still makes this technology not good enough to things which I would really want to do with them. And yeah, and the VR, yeah, of course, we don't have a need at the moment for, but maybe if we start to do different trainings for different solutions, why not? Yeah, I'm open for that. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. And then Anna asks, on average, how long does it take for your team to develop a course?
Yeah, that's well, actually, I would say the development never ends, but to ship it, like to have it ready. Um, when we were starting, it also depends how many people I have on board. When I was starting as a service owners, we had only 3 people uh, aside of me to produce the material. So we needed to adapt to produce mainly micro learning and make the trainer the
Mm.
interface of the training. So the trainer was kind of introducing some topics, and then there was a lot of micro learning videos, and there were tons of exercises to do in the system. So because we needed to ship relatively quickly in a matter of 6-8 months, the training, but that was, let's say, the very first customer, and yeah, really they really appreciated the training we provided, and also like estimating the time amount which is needed for the training. We kind of overestimated just to be sure that we are not short on time. And we expanded the first training with this first, let's call them launching customer, for 7 days. And after the training, we reshaped it already to 5 days. So you need to learn on your experience, and sometimes you need to make some brave decisions to see how it works. Like the approach to like be super safe and like to reach the 100% of what you would like to have might be too time consuming. So you need to be iterative, as you said, and incremental. So you need to start with something and progress from that and gain experience, get feedback. And we constantly work on feedback. Like the whole agile mentality is reviewing, getting feedback, and improving. And that's PDCA, like plan, do, check, act. It's the constant process of these 4 steps to all the time becoming better. And yeah, we do upgrades of the training materials, like even in the invitation which we send for each training. Almost each time we update something small because we get feedback. Oh, that would be nice to have that. Oh, that's too much. And all the time, it's not like that we have one template and we just change images. We all the time like review that and change something, and it's a constant, yeah. elevation, kind of like we want to become better and better all the time. It's driving us forward, kind of main motivator to provide better service. And yeah, and
Yeah, I think
mm,
I was just gonna say my teams that I've run in the past, we also adopted a very agile mentality, same as what you're saying. And so it was always most important to get that MVP in the hands of the customer or in the hands of a stakeholder to get that feedback so that you could iterate on it. And I think that's why it's so important to understand when you have achieved enough to say that you can effectively measure your learning outcome, and then once you have that you can put it out into the wild. So for us, lead time, it would always depend, right, like what you're
yeah.
saying, but I think the lead time for us was 1 to 2 months to get out a full course. If it was a micro learning, then it was just a matter of weeks, and basically we wanted that in someone's hands in that time frame. It might not ship to worldwide customers in that time frame, but it got out to somebody in that time frame. And that way we had a primary and a secondary team. And so the primary team was our most senior designers, and the secondary team was junior designers, people who could take the quasi finished product and then iterate on it, like you said, change visuals, update, text, all that kind of stuff. So we kind of had a pipeline of people that we could do that with. And yeah, I just felt like that was a much better approach than the linear frameworks that a lot of people use in learning design. The addies and all of that kind of stuff, they have their place certainly, but in an industry like yours, where content efficacy and all of that is so important, because the level of sophistication with your systems, I would imagine that iterative approach has been very helpful for you guys to be able to get information to your customers faster.
Yeah, and I can also give additional example. We have a case when we produce self-paced learning for pilot apps, which are used on tablets in the aircraft cockpit while in flight, or even during the taxiway to the runway and so on in the airport. And we have that there is the before the release, they developed the next release solution, and it's called like stable build, so that they have it stable, and then we start to produce the materials. We have it updated from the previous smaller releases and so on, but we have only 4 weeks to deliver sometimes the whole new training, which if we were getting storyboards in Word document, and it sometimes was 800 pages or 1000 pages. And we now moved from this Word. We now use tools like Miro, where we have the constantly available storyboard to a lot of stakeholders, and you can have like overview of the whole thing, because having that in Word is like painful experience. Like you're like doom scrolling almost. So
Yes.
and it takes like we have 4 weeks for that. So sometimes if
Got
it's
it.
such a big thing, we need to invest like 4 or 5 people into it. If it's a small thing, like we need to invest like 1 2 people to work on it. So it all depends on the size of the module and so on. For very big module, which we, as I said, spent like 8 months in the beginning, and that was like the very first training. There were no users existing, like there were no trainers existing, that we were starting from the very beginning. So we
Right.
needed kind of invent what actually should be delivered in the training. So now we are doing like the next big iteration. So we are changing that the whole training concept. We changed to more self-paced and so on. So to provide that, it takes around 8 months for the team. But in the meantime, we need to produce these trainings for different teams, like the pilot apps and so on, so on. So there are many different things dropping out. So for me as a service owner, I need to plan the work for the team. So I need to like prioritize constantly what's coming in and what's coming out, and when we need to ship this, and to talk with the stakeholders. If you want me to take that, I need to like delay something else. So this is my part, yeah, of work in much degree. So what I really focus on is to give kind of safe environment for the team, so they know what to do and when to do it, and they are not surprised. Because like changing the scope of work, because we work in 3 week sprints. We decided
Okay.
as a team, tested 2 4 weeks and so on, that the team decided that 3 weeks is the, let's say, the best solution for us. And yeah, and we try to keep to that scope which we agree. It's a commitment from the team to me, and my commitment to them, that I will not change it, and they are like delivering, and we review that every week, and they have their own work and so on. I'm not going so deep with the topics anymore. And yeah, and it works, like, so that's super important for us to have like clarity of business goals and which we contribute to. So we have a kind of roadmap for the year, and with every sprint we add what we are working on. So at the end of the year, at any time of the year, I can show you the prognosis for the year, what will be
Hmm,
developed later on, and I already have like marked what we did in the previous month. So
nice.
for the discussion at the table and with the stakeholders, if somebody says, "Oh, we need now this," I can say, "Okay, but that's where we are, and you need to decide. You are, let's say, the business person to decide what should we focus on." And because sometimes you can meet someone's expectations that, "Oh, that's training, they can jump to a different topic and do that for me," and so on. But I always say, I don't have idle team members sitting at the table and drinking coffee. Everybody is busy, like, with the almost 100% of their amount. Like, we cannot like push more and more and more stuff for production. So it's also sometimes saying no in a way that business understands it. That's very important. And to give rationale why not, and if they want,
Yeah.
what needs to change. That's super important, to be transparent within the organization. Uh, yeah, that's
Not always the easiest thing to do, to say no, but always, I
yeah,
think, super important to know when to say no. Let's move forward here on. Let's talk a little bit about business impact. So you mentioned earlier that you've moved to Adobe Learning Manager a few years back,
yeah.
and you went from about you were doing 100% instructor led, and now you do about 60% instructor led. Is that correct?
Well, in the main training, I would say it's between the main one which we develop, and this, let's say, is our flag training, because it's a new module which changed the philosophy of the whole Lido flight for the dispatchers. Now it has, I would say, like 60% of self-paced and 40% of time spent with the trainer. Although this 40% also covers 4 Q&A sessions after the training, so it's 8 hours. So it's even less within the training itself. And yeah, and I would also refer, maybe with the training, the way we change. I think this is also super important, that if you want to be treated seriously, you cannot say to the business that, "Give me the product and I will give you a training in 1 year." Like, it's not possible. Like, you need to
Right.
deliver on time when they are almost ready. So you need to work pace, almost the same pace as the development happens. And yeah, because sometimes, if you would like to do it the waterfall way, you would wait until the product is ready, deliver us the documentation, let us start our work, and in 1 year we're gonna deliver you like perfect training. So that is not an option in our business. And yeah, going back to the use of Adobe Learning Manager, uh, what it really does for us, like, I would say that one of the biggest benefits is that we can automate planning and enrollment to training. So we can in advance prepare the training and have profiles and everything, and people get enrolled automatically. And we can prepare the learning paths in a way that they go one by one the way we plan it. And of course, there are always things you would like to have more. Like, I would maybe like to have sometimes to be able to launch some module on a very precise time and so on and so on. But generally, what I learned in my life is that you always have like bigger expectations, but maybe try to focus on how to use the stuff you are getting from the system, and then decide if you are able to utilize the benefits of it, and then decide that you are not able, for example, then require more. But usually we are able to find a way to reach our goals. And what is super important with Adobe Learning Manager, that's the user interface does not require any training. Like you launch Adobe Learning Manager and you are in, you don't have to go like through 5 different folders to get to the right training, like and you don't know how to get back, and you like puzzled after the first use and you need to try like how I was getting there, like not of that. Like it's all super clean, clear and transparent, and I would say that's the biggest strength of the whole thing. And I would say this is the most important thing for us, that the customers, the users know how to move around and are able immediately to use it without additional introduction trainings. Because if you need to learn the tool first, where you have the training, it's already giving you like a cognitive load. Instead of
Right.
going into the learning, you need to spend some cognitive load to learn how to operate the tool. And that's not what we want. We want people to dive into the learning, not how to operate the tool, which provides them
Right.
the learning. So that's, I would say, that's the main superpower, if you would like to use the modern language.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think that one of the things that I hear from our customers a lot, and one of the things that I experienced when I first started using the platform myself, is that we remove a lot of the friction from learning, because the interface is, like you said, very clean. It's also very consistent. That's one of the things that
Yeah.
I like about it. The fluidic player allows you to stay in an immersive experience. It does not pop SCORM packets open in different windows and
Yeah.
all of that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of that leads to efficiency gains and things like that that go way beyond just things like course completions. And we actually have a report that's attached here in Adobe Connect for people to look at. It's called the Total Economic Impact Report. It was done by Forrester, which kind of gives you an idea of some of the ROI that you could see from Adobe Learning Manager, and it covers a gamut of different things. And I just wanted to mention that we have that available down in the pod. It's on my right. I assume it's on everyone else's right as well, in the Adobe Connect pod. So if you want to take a look at that, it's available, and hopefully that gives you a little bit more information about that. But let's stay on track here for us, and let's see here. Let's go. We've got probably time for one more question here. So let's talk about, for organizations that want to kind of do what you are doing, they want to build a customer education academy or some sort of experience, and they want it to really elevate their brand. What are not necessarily the things they should do? What are the things that they should avoid? What are the things that do not elevate the brand experience?
So internally, first of all, do not complain. Generally, human mentality is kind of, if I have obstacles, I start to complain often. Like, focus on the business and how can you like support the business. I think that's the mental drive to here to take, like the training. And we are like a supporting service. We are not the main, like the business is about aviation and flight planning and so on. So we are supporting the overall success, but we are like, let's say, second in the line. I'm not the front man of the whole organization, and I will never be with the training service, because we are supporting great product with the great services. And I think the mentality is the first item. So avoid getting into the trap of complaining that we don't have enough budget, that we don't have this and that, and try to figure out how to make it happen, like to how to become successful. And like, if you achieve some even small successes, you get attention from the stakeholders, and they start to see potential in your work and will start to support you. And maybe your team will start to grow and do more ambitious things. So yeah, we started very small. Actually, there was 4 trainers, and I joined as a service owner, and then I started to recruit instructional designers. But the beginning were quite small. In the past, it was just trainers visiting customers, and or them visiting us and having the training in a more traditional way. And but there was decision that we want to move to more digital. And actually, that was ahead of a COVID a bit. So anyway, we needed to at some point change to more remote trainings. But to be frankly, speaking, actually, the customers, when we do remote sessions, there is quite often a situation that trainer comes from a session and says, I was feeling I'm speaking with a empty display because nobody is responding. I sometimes even ask
Mm.
myself, are there people there? So people differently respond to online sessions. Some will be active, and usually in such sessions you have only 2 3 people active from maybe 12, 15.
Yep.
So you start to think to yourself like, are they listening or are they active or what's going on there? Like, should I be more engaging or I don't know, say more jokes or something? So of course, it's also a matter of experience to facilitate digital meetings, but definitely there is more connection between the learners and the trainer when they're in the same classroom. That's no
Yep.
doubt.
Yep, I agree with you. That was one of the things that I feel like we lost when the world went remote a few years ago.
Yeah.
Because we used to do a lot of our trainings, our advertiser certifications used to happen in person. We would bring advertising groups to our office and we would train them in person. And you would get to know them. You would get to understand a little bit more about their context and what they were trying to do, their goals, all of that kind of stuff. And like you said, when we pivoted to digital, sometimes you put a message out into the world and the chat pod, or you talk and it's like you don't get a lot of feedback back. That's very difficult for a trainer to adjust to. But I think if you've done your work leading up to the session, you just stick to what's in the script, you work forward from that, and most of the time people will get value from it, even if it is not completely tailored to a question that they asked in the chat, or whatever the case may be, right? So I think that's a big takeaway, is don't get discouraged. If you get a lack of feedback, I think you'll get aggregate feedback over time, and you can use that to really reshape, how you create and build learning.
Yeah, and then maybe just come back what to avoid, like avoid maybe just creation of a training to have a training. Really focus
Yes.
on the value for the customer, like what they need to achieve, like to really have the idea what is the finish line after the training, like where they need to be after the training. This is super important, I think, to but that's actually, if I would to say, like, to give advice where to start, I would say start with reading stuff from Jack Phillips, Robert Brinkerhoff, and 6D, Roy Pollack, Andrew Jefferson, and like they give like the whole experience they have. You can read it and you just pay a couple of dollars for that, or euros, and you get access to, like, Jesus, super experience of these guys who are like mentors for me, really. Because yeah, they give you everything on the plate. You just need to read and understand and try to adapt it to your situation, and that's yeah, super valuable from my perspective.
Totally agree with you. Well, we are running out of time. I see some people typing in the chat, but we do have to wrap up here. If you get your questions in, I will ask them. We'll see. Let's see here. Great. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, Anna. Thank you for joining us.